Good morning, students. Today we are going to begin about the directive principles of state policies. Now, what do you mean by directive principles? So, the directive principles of state policies, they are listed in Part 4 of the Indian Constitution and they run from 36 to 51. So, what are directive principles? Directive principles are the guidelines given to the government to follow in enacting certain laws. So, they are just the wishes and thoughts of our policy makers. If they follow these guidelines, the goal of India's reaching the welfare state will be achieved. So, after the Britishers left India, so the constitution framers had to borrow certain policies from the foreign countries, and therefore we can see the different sources of our directive principles are: number one, from the Irish Republic we get the principle of social policy. That means the social policy have been already explained in the preamble. And then the Declaration of Right of Man and Citizen from the revolutionary France. From the French Revolution we get the Declaration of Right of Men and Citizen. Then the idea of Mahatma Gandhi was also kept for establishment of village panchayats and ban on cow slaughter and liquor. Then the Charter of Human Rights as stated by the United Nations, and finally the Universal Declaration of Human Rights adopted by UN. So these are from the sources the directive principles of state policies have been set up. Now we see about the next, that is, what are the importance of the directive principles? So the directive principles plays a very important role, though it is not a legal part of the constitution, but the constitution maker, the lawmakers have to abide by certain rules. So the first is the framework of the government. The directive principle gives the framework of the government, social, political and economical. That means explains how the government should function on these matters. Then second, it gives the guidelines to the government before formulating any policies. The directive principles gives the guidelines how to move about and how to go, so that the policies aimed by the policy makers would achieve India to a welfare state. Thirdly, a yardstick. The directive principles serve as a yardstick to measure the ability of the government, whether the government is performing well or not. So they judge the performance of the government, and if it is not doing work according to the people in the next general election, they may wipe him out or they may throw the political parties out. Then it aims at the welfare state. The directive principle, the main aim of directive principle is to achieve India into a welfare state. Welfare state in the sense what? Justice, liberty, equality and fraternity. That means it has to give social justice, political justice, liberty, equality and fraternity to all the people. Fifth, we have education of the people. Okay, it educates the people. That means the people get education from the directive principle, what they expect from the present government or what they expect, and if they are not satisfied with the performance of the present government, they can take them out. So the very important is from the last week of the 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 lays down that if the directive principle of state policies are been standing to make the people a welfare state, and if the fundamental rights are standing in the way, then it will override the Article 14, 19 and 23 to be abide by the government. That means if it is concerned for the welfare of the state or the community is more paramount, more importance than the welfare of the individual. Therefore, the directive principles aims at giving full-fledged welfare state to the community, not to the individual. So in this case, the directive principles will override the fundamental rights. Clear? Then we have the different, that is a welfare state. We call India to be a welfare state. That means a welfare state is one in which all citizens enjoy equal rights and they have minimum number of people living with maximum happiness. So this has been done to achieve by the different norms. That means we have adhered to the social equality and justice. So what is social equality? That means right to education. So the right to education has been implemented in the directive principle. That means the children below the age of children between the age of 6 and 14 are to secure free and compulsory education in the government and the government aided schools. They have the right to education, free and compulsory education from 6 to 14 in all government schools or the government aided schools run by. Then we have, now the government has also formulated the directive principle that 25% of the seats will be reserved for the weaker sections of the society in all educational institutions. Then special scholarships have been granted to the weaker sections of the society, those who cannot afford to pay the fees. So the special scholarships are given to those deserving candidates from the weaker section of the society whom they cannot pay the price. Then also we have the reservation of seats. Certain seats have been reserved for the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe and the lower section of the society for their upliftment in various educational institutions and government jobs. Then untouchability has been considered as a crime. So that means there will be no untouchability, or if anyone practices this untouchability, he is bound to be taken by dogs or behind bars. Then the 5-year plans. The 5-year plans also aims to establish India into a welfare state. Whatever policies have been done, taken into care the weaker sections of the society so that they can get the maximum benefit from the 5-year plans. Follow? Then we have the economic welfare. The economic welfare is also seen to develop the economic standard of the people of India. In this we have the Jamindari system have been abolished. Now new land reforms have been taken up. So the tenant, the landlord system, the Jamindari system which to exploit the peasants, that has been abolished and new land reforms have been introduced. Then we have the right to fair compensation and transparency in land acquisition. So according to the bill, the land acquisition bill of 2013, it has been said that there will be right and fair compensation and transparency in the land acquisition bill. That means if any of the land have been taken by the government or to establish certain infrastructure for giving employment and jobs, accurate compensation will be given and it will be seen the rehabilitation will also be taken care. So therefore the Jamindari system have been abolished. Then also we have nationalization of banks and collieries, keeping in mind the equal distribution of wealth among all classes of people so that the wealth does not concentrate in the hands of a few. The banks and collieries have been nationalized. Then finally we come equal pay for equal work for both men and women. That means there will be no demarcation between men and women who are doing the same job. They will receive the same pay for both. Then the Minimum Wage Board Act of 1948 has to be revived to see the condition of the workers, and the board seeks to revive the pay scale of the workers. So this has been done for the betterment of the people. Then we have the PMFBY, the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana. It started in Jan 2016 by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. According to this, all farmers will have to pay 2% price for the Kharif and 1.5% for the Rabi crop, and all others 90% will be borne by the government depending upon the failures of due to famine or other drought condition that will be borne by the government. So therefore, this has been done to uplift the farmers so that they can produce the crops in a better way. Then we have the Jan Dhan Yojana. So the Jan Dhan Yojana again started in August 15, 2014 by the Prime Minister Narendra Modi. According to this, bank accounts have been opened for the poor and a life insurance cover of 30,000 adding to a 1 lakh accidental benefit have been opened for the weaker sections of the society, those who are living below the poverty line. And by Jan 13, 2016, over 20 crores bank accounts were opened and rupees 301.8 billions were deposited in the bank. So this shows the idea of saving among the masses, so that the idea of saving will come up against the masses for this. So therefore, the Prime Minister's this Jan Dhan Yojana aims at giving a person to the weaker sections to open. Now you can see even the Prime Minister has announced that a certain amount will be deposited in the bank of the poor. And we see that the long list of lines near the bank to claim the money. So this has been done to uplift the people during their bad times. Then the National Security Bill has been put in 2013. The National Security Bill passed in 2013 tries to give the food grains at a very subsidized rate to the deserving weaker sections of the society. So 75% of the rural and 50% of the urban populations, they are entitled to 5 kg food grains per person per month at the rate of rupees 3, rupees 2, rupees 1 kg for rice, wheat and oats grain, so that they can afford to live a minimum life and sustain a well uniform life. So these are the policies that have been chalked out by the government. Then also they have seen for the pregnant woman 6,000 rupees and maternity leave of about 6 months have been granted to the pregnant woman, so that they can live a good life, or they don't have to go to work that period, and the money will be given to them for the development of her, or taking good care of her. Then we come to political, administration and legal matters. In this we have the Panchayati Raj. The Panchayati Raj has been almost set up in all the states. Therefore, this is one of the achievement or dream of Mahatma Gandhi. So the Panchayati Raj has been almost established in the rural areas. The Gram Panchayat have been established, that is there. And second is free legal aid. Free legal aid has been given to the persons who cannot afford to hire the lawyers, and so they can claim the rights, or the equal justice will be meted to them who cannot hire the lawyers at a very high cost. Then third, we have the judiciary is completely separated from the executive. This has been done so that the executive will not influence the judiciary. That means the judiciary is impartial. It can give decision without being pressurized by the executive, and therefore the judiciary is completely separated from the executive. Now we move on to page next 4 plus page 4. Now foreign policies. Now India opposes colonialism. That means it is against the racism, colonialism, and strictly it was against the apartheid policy taken up by South Africa. What is apartheid? That means the policy of racial discrimination. That means South Africa had followed the policy of racial discrimination. You may be aware that the whites were dominating in every field, the political, social and economic, and the blacks were not given a chance. And so the Dr. Nelson Mandela, he fought for continuous for this, and he was put behind the bars for 27 years. And finally, the UN cut down all military and economic sanctions against South Africa if it did not give up its policy of apartheid. And finally, you have also seen by the sports, the South Africa for a long time was not allowed to take part in the international sports like the cricket and all, unless and until it gave up the policy of apartheid. Then secondly is India is law abiding. It respects the international laws, and it is abiding by the international laws and forums, whatever it comes. It tries to settle the all international matters by peaceful negotiation and bilateral or mutual understanding. Therefore, it is law abiding. It tries to settle its disputes by peaceful cooperation, law abiding, and by mutual understanding. That is there. Then finally, complete disarmament. India is against the procuring of deadly weapons that are destructive, and it believes in complete disarmament. That means only the armaments can be used for peaceful and scientific reasons, not for any war or other things. So these are being enumerated in the directive principles of state policies. So this is a very short chapter. In short, we have done about the directive principles of state policies that have been implemented by the makers of our constitution. Many of us are questioning the directive principles are not a legal part of the constitution. Then why it has been implemented in the constitution? So therefore it was the way sort of the directive principles, though not a legal part of the constitution, but they serve as a guideline for the government to frame their policies and look after to develop into a welfare state. So the basic difference between directive principles and fundamental rights, the fundamental rights we have dealt in the previous chapter, is that the fundamental rights are the legal part of the constitution, whereas the directive principles are not the legal part of the constitution. Therefore, you can say if the directive principles are not achieved, you cannot take the recourse of the law. But if any of your fundamental rights have been violated, you can go to the court for the enforcement of your right. So that's the basic difference between the directive principles and the fundamental rights. I hope you have understood the topic, and please go through it and have a good day. God bless you. Thank you.